back home. Betrayal scars, can't stop thinking about those stab wounds. We might not catch him today, but he gon' die soon.
Let's talk about some of these guys for the quarterbacks discussion. I'll go with you. Who is your number one quarterback? If you have the number one overall pick, who would you target?
For me, it's Bryce Young. Bryce Young is QB1 for me. Um, yeah, that's that's what I would go with. I know a lot of people, criticize or not criticize him for his size, but they have concerns about his size, and I think it's legitimate concerns. But I think he's a special talent that you can't really pass up, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, I would say CJ Stroud is my number one. See if I can get him here. Nope. There we go. CJ Stroud for me is my number one, and I feel like most people have them 1 and 2 right now. Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah. So when the Bears were, at the top of the draft, they were the number one pick. I was on the CJ Stroud train. I mean, I still am. Like I love CJ, I love Bryce. Like those are the two 1A, 1B for me.
Yeah.
And so, and also because what I saw from him at the Georgia game, that playoff game, is what I've been waiting to see from CJ his whole college career. But once the Panthers, because I figured, okay, the Bears aren't taking a quarterback. Bryce Young is going to the Texans, and boom, we're right there for CJ Stroud's coming to us. But then once the Panthers hopped up to number one, it was like, all right, man, where do we
He's
go from
gone.
here? Because
Yep.
we're not going to get either one of those. So so yeah, it's definitely, if we don't get Bryce, I want CJ. If we don't get CJ, I want Bryce. It was that for me.
Yep. I feel that. I feel like for me, the size thing, because like you were saying, it is a concern, and I definitely have that as like a big concern with Bryce Young. The only other thing though, because it's not just like about like, oh, he might just get hit too hard by someone, right? Like, Kyler Murray's out there, Drew Brees has been out there, even back Doug Flutie's been out there, But to me, the thing that worries me about Bryce Young is he plays like Carson Wentz in the fact that no play is dead until the ball's on the ground, essentially, or he's getting sacked. And so for me, like Carson Wentz has been injured every single year of his career, essentially. Like I don't think there's been a year where he's not been injured. And a lot of those kind of quarterbacks that play that way just take too many hits, and not like, I'm bracing for a hit because I'm, getting tackled or whatever, but it's like, I'm throwing my body out there and then I'm getting knocked down. And like, it's just to me like worse hits than like the typical like Justin Fields, or Lamar Jackson, who's running and they're getting hit in the open field and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
no, I get you.
that to me is like, okay, the size is a concern, but like, I think the play style with the size is something that isn't talked about a lot. That's like my concern, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And then CJ Stroud, the reason why I have him number one is, like you said, the Georgia game. He like just doing everything. And obviously, no one's perfect as a prospect, I feel like. But, CJ Stroud showed a lot of growth. And that's what I feel like prospects should show, is that just like, okay, this is something I'm not good at. Now it's something I am good at. So, and I feel like Stroud does that. But who's your number three?
So my number three has is Anthony Richardson. He's my number three guy. That if we don't get CJ, if we don't get Bryce, then that's who I would want to get in the draft. And adding Shane Steichen as our head coach makes it a little bit more easier of a pill to swallow to take him at 4. So I've always been of the the mindset that if AR is the guy, trade back, because positional value, trade back, or I guess draft value, but trade back to maybe like 6, 7, somewhere around there, and then take AR. I never liked him at 4. But like I said, Shane Steichen makes it an easier pill to swallow if we were to take him at 4, just because seeing what he did with Jalen Hurts over the past 2 years, what he's done with Justin Herbert, when he was over there with the Chargers, it just makes it a little bit easier to swallow since it'll be Steichen as the head coach.
Yeah. What is your like expectation for him year one if we draft him?
Um, Really, just to clean up some of his footwork. I don't. I mean, no matter who we take, I don't really have high expectations of the team unless we just put together like some spectacular team around this rookie quarterback, which I don't really see that happening for us. Like we're still maybe 3 years away. So with AR, it would or Anthony Richardson, it would just be to fix his footwork, be more consistent. Well, really be more consistent with his footwork. That's been his biggest issue is his consistency with his footwork. So be more consistent there, and improve his accuracy. I think that it for him it's really getting a lot of game reps, live reps, because he didn't have that in college. So for me, year one, it would be let's get you some game reps, let's fix your footwork, and get you prepared, moving forward as our quarterback.
Yeah. I what I like about Anthony Richardson is I feel like the word is survivability in the NFL. I think that's kind of like the biggest key for a lot of quarterbacks that do have success. If they can survive like 2 or 3 years, they tend to figure it out. And like what I mean by that, you can have a lot of different like ways to accomplish that. So like um, Aaron Rodgers survived because he got to sit behind Brett Favre. Lamar Jackson has gotten a lot better because he survived on his feet. Same with Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. The Justin Herbert, he didn't really necessarily have to like survive. He just was good from the get go, essentially as a thrower, and that's just like the rare exception. That's like the Andrew Lucks and stuff like that, where it's like okay, they're already there and ready to go. And so I feel like Anthony Richardson probably has the best survivability if you were to start him week one because of his legs. I feel like with Stroud and Bryce Young, they have better than the rest of the draft, but they also kind of take a seat back because, like, I feel like if a team puts them out week one, they're going to be relying on their arm, the timing, wide receivers. The game is really fast; it's hard to adjust, and so I feel like, you might get the Zach Wilson effect where it's like, okay, this is too much too fast, and now we're kind of just crumbling the prospect at that point. And so that's
Yeah.
what kind of intrigues me about Anthony Richardson is he has survivability anywhere in the league as long as the team uses him right, essentially. So that's what I really like about him, and I have him as my number three, is what I feel like most people do.
Yeah.
But I have two other quarterbacks. I just kind of want to see where you rank them. So with Will Levis and Hendon Hooker, do you have Hooker or Levis as your number four? I'm assuming those are your 4 and 5, but do you have
Yeah.
them there?
Um, so with Hendon Hooker, had he finished out the season, then yeah, he would have been my four. Or actually he would have probably been my three, if he was healthy. Um right now I have Will Levis slightly ahead of him because I know Levis will be available as soon as the season starts. And I mean, granted, Hendon Hooker looks like he's, recovering well from the ACL surgery. We still don't know where he's going to be once the season starts. So but as a talent, I think Hendon Hooker probably would be the third best quarterback in this draft. But right now I have him at five, just behind Will Levis, just because of the knee injury.
Okay. Would you take either of them at 4? Like
No.
if okay, yeah, if Anthony Richardson's off the board at 3 by a trade up or whatever, you would just pass essentially.
Yeah, I would either go BPA, best player available, or I would trade back. It's one of
Yeah,
those.
that's
I would take Hendon in the second, or actually, I would take Hendon towards the bottom of the first. So, like, if we could find a way to trade back into the first with that 35th pick, and maybe trade up to 31 where Kansas City is. If Hendon's there, then I would take him right there. So that way we still secure that fifth year option with Hendon Hooker.
yeah. Um, that's kind of like what I'm thinking is, and this kind of jumps us into this like next conversation. Yeah, sorry, conversation. I can't speak sometimes, but where what if we don't take a quarterback at 4? And I think this is starting to become more and more realistic of
Yeah.
the Raiders or the Titans or whoever trades up to number 3, and it goes quarterback, 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 and then the Colts are left there like, oh, we don't have our guy. Like,
Yeah.
if that happens, who's your number one? Is it Will Anderson? Is it Tyree Wilson? Or Jalen Carter's probably like the other. Those are like the three big guys right now.
Yeah. So with Jalen Carter, while I think he's a great talent, I think he has too many with Chris Ballard would consider character flaws, and we know how Ballard is when it comes to that. Um
Yeah.
he's probably not going to draft you. But I think he's a tremendous talent. But there's, just still some questions. Like he was at his pro day, he was out of shape. He came in 10 pounds heavier. Will Anderson, while I would like him to be, and I think Will Anderson is great, but I don't really know if he fits Gus's scheme. I mean, I guess he would be the Y, the Leo, the pretty much Y9 like Yannick
Yeah.
was. But the thing is that he's really an outside backer in like a 3-4 defense. That's why I think Will Anderson is better at. Now, could he be that rush in with his hand in the dirt? Probably, maybe. Micah Parsons type. Probably. And I wouldn't mind taking Will Anderson actually at 4, but I just don't know how he would fit in Gus Bradley's defense. So I would probably lean more Tyree Wilson, but Will Anderson at 4, I really wouldn't be mad at all.
Yeah, so the thing for me is if Gus Bradley can get whatever he got out of Max Crosby, because that was kind of like his last year is Max Crosby's like big year essentially with the Raiders. If he can get that out of Max Crosby, just what is he going to get out of Tyree Wilson if he's there?
Yeah,
Because he's like what 6'7", 6'8" as
yeah,
an edge rusher, and I'm going to bring it over here, but like he's just a big, fast, strong dude. He's got arm length like I think probably the longest arms in the whole draft, and just I feel like the tools matched up with the coach is probably the best pairing. But like if Will Anderson is our guy, like I'm not going to be complaining at all because
yeah, exactly.
he's ready to go right now. So I'm excited. I think those would be the two picks. If not for some reason, then you got to trade out. You got to move down. You got to get value out of that pick, but
Yeah,
that will be the day, man. If Colts fans get a hold of like the draft and it's quarterback, 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 and then we trade down, oh man, dude, it's gonna be hell.
oh, they're gonna be
Well,
upset, and
either way,
that's why, like, my thing was, even on Twitter, I'm like, don't be surprised if this happens. We know who Chris Ballard is. He's not going to force a pick at 4. He's not going to force himself to pick a quarterback at 4 if he doesn't have conviction about that quarterback. And either he's going to take the best player available or he's going to trade back to, we know he loves picks. He values draft picks. And we know with number 4, we can get a lot of draft picks. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's not going to be a surprise if he did do that.
Well, and the thing too that makes that pick so valuable is it's the top guy of the rest. Essentially, it's like all the
Yeah,
quarterbacks are gone. Now, who wants the top? The first crack at their guy, essentially.
yeah,
And so you have a lot of teams to trade up with. The Falcons. You got the Bears could maybe trade back up or whatever. But that to me, I think gets Chris Ballard excited. Is like, okay, if those three quarterbacks are gone, that would suck. But like if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be shopping this pick, and so that I think that's going to be exciting to watch.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
Before we move on to the next one, what do you think is the chance that he trades up to 3 if that happens? And who would it be for, essentially? If you're thinking that happens, who would it be for?
So if he traded up to 3, I mean, I think the likelihood is, if I had to say stay put or trade up to 3, I would probably say 80-20. 80% that we stay at 4, 20% maybe we trade up to 3, and that would be to get Anthony Richardson. And the reason I feel like a lot more confident that Anthony Richardson is probably the pick is because today at his pro day we sent Morocco Brown there. All the other pro days were area scouts, and we know if the director of uh player personnel, like head scout or whatever he is, um, we know if he's there, it's because we have a lot of interest in whoever that school has to offer.
Yeah,
So that gives me kind of a thing. It probably gives me a little telltale that we're leaning towards Anthony Richardson.
yeah. I do think that they're probably is kind of like the same mindset of us, where it's like if there's 3 guys, I think they're going to be happy to take one of those three guys. So like if somehow the Panthers or the Texans value Anthony Richardson more than the CJ Stroud and the Bryce Young, then I think the Colts could trade up to number 3 as soon as Anthony Richardson gets taken,
Yeah,
because then you know you get one of those two. And so
yeah,
that to me is like, if it goes Stroud, if it goes Young, the Colts stay. I feel like if Anthony Richardson gets taken, I feel like the Colts might trade up for one of Stroud or Young potentially. And then I can also see them trading up for Anthony Richardson if the concern of the Titans trading up to number 3 is a big deal, because then it's like, okay, we got Trevor Lawrence, we got CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, and then we got Anthony Richardson to deal with,
yeah,
and we got Gardner Minshew. So like that's the thing that's just tough about this, is like I feel like it is hard to just stay there and stay put, because it's just letting other people's choices dictate our future. And I know a lot of Colts fans get like very upset about that. Like,
yeah.
why, if you like this one guy, why wouldn't you trade up? Why wouldn't you do that? Well, it's like, well, we're not going to trade Michael Pittman and 2 first round picks just to get a quarterback that we don't know, like, that is going to be the home run pick. So
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is just, it's tough to deal with as a fan. But I think we got that kind of in our minds that it's probably going to happen that way if we're not going to get a
Yeah.
quarterback at 4. And then the other conversation is, if okay, so this is kind of what a lot of people have been talking about now, is it's probably going to go CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and then the Cardinals take Will Anderson. Is probably like the most likely scenario right now. And then the Colts pass on Anthony Richardson, or Anthony Richardson goes before. If all 3 of those quarterbacks go, what are the chances that the Colts just let go of the quarterback conversation and call up the Ravens and say, "Hey, we're going to take a problem off your desk and try and take Lamar Jackson"? Do you think that could happen?
I think the Colts are weighing that as an option on getting Lamar Jackson. Um, and I mean, I would be ecstatic if we got
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson. My only thing is working out a contract, and I mean, I don't mind giving up the picks for Lamar. Like I don't mind that at all. We already know what Lamar can do. We know he still has room to grow. He's 26 years old, and I think with Shane Steichen, again, like just the way he's developed quarterbacks, I think that the sky is the limit with Lamar. But it would just be one of those things where what are we still going to be able to pay him and build our roster? And that's my biggest thing, because we have holes. We know we have holes. We saw it last year. That's the reason we were 4-12-1, because we have holes in our roster.
yeah,
It wasn't just bad quarterback play. It was a lot of things. So would we be able to fill those holes as far as right guard, cornerback now, since we traded Stephon Gilmore? I know we have some young corners on the roster, but cornerback, we still need to figure out our edge rush. We still need to figure out our linebacker room because we let Bobby go.
yeah,
So, and we still got to add more receivers. So, would we be able to do that and sign Lamar? That's the question. If the Colts are able to figure all of that out, I'm all in. Like I'm all for it. Like if Ballard can figure that out and be like, okay, we'll give Lamar his 40 mil, 50 mil a year. We'll structure the contracts to still make it friendly to us, to where we can still make some roster moves. Then I'm all in. If they could do something like what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, give him the long-term deal to kind of draw out the money. Hey, go right ahead. I'm here
yeah.
for it.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest thing with Lamar, because I think Lamar, even as a passer, is worth it. Like I feel like he's a good passer. Like
Yeah.
I feel like he takes too much like criticism on being a passer, because like he can sit in the pocket and throw it. I don't have any problem with that. He can scramble around and not have to force him running the ball down the field. Like he doesn't always do that. He does it when there's an opportunity for sure.
Yeah,
And
and I
like
mean, he's a top 5 arm talent in the
yeah,
NFL. Like, if you watch him and some of the arm angles he throws from, he's a top 5 arm talent in the
yeah,
NFL. So, he takes a lot of heat, and I really don't get it, because if you watch
no.
him play, he's dynamic.
Well, so my thing with Lamar Jackson, I've noticed, is I'm always on the other side of the mainstream opinion on Lamar Jackson. I feel like because like when he was going blowing up at Louisville, I was like, okay, like he's not all that. Like like I probably was just being counterculture or whatever. And then when he was going in the draft, I was like, this dude could be really special because everyone was saying he could be running back, he could be wide receiver. I was like, no, like I'm actually rooting for the guy. And
Yeah.
then he goes in, and then it's like all you hear is Lamar Jackson's the next greatest thing, and I was like, okay, I don't really think he's the next greatest thing. And so like I definitely catch myself there, and maybe I'm just biased or whatever, but I feel like with Lamar Jackson, I've had times where I'm like, okay, he can't win in the playoffs because X, Y, Z, but I feel like more than anything, the way that the Ravens have used Lamar Jackson won't win in the playoffs, essentially. Like the way that they used him is not a way to win in the playoffs. He definitely was able to win a lot of games in the regular season. We've seen that. But the way that he has been used, like they lost like what 4 or 5 fourth quarter leads last year with Lamar Jackson on the field. All right, sorry, we just had a little bit of a moment there, but just going back to Lamar Jackson, way I see Lamar Jackson is someone that is a great thrower, great passer, and I feel like that wedding of Shane Steichen with Lamar Jackson would be elite. I feel like that'd be a good pairing. But that word wedding is kind of what I feel like it would have to be with Lamar Jackson because this is like this deal. If that happens, it's Lamar Jackson is the guy for like he's going to be on track essentially for the next 6 years, like at least because I was just listening to I think Brett Coleman who was talking about Lamar Jackson's situation and he compared it to Deshaun Watson, and he was saying that like the amount of guarantee that's in there, you don't really get to escape from if for some reason he is injured or whatever reason there might be. Maybe he's not good anymore for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
so you would have to really be married to the idea of Lamar Jackson, being who Lamar Jackson is. Because the thing is like if you try and tell Lamar Jackson, don't take those opportunities that, when there's wide open grass there or, don't run the ball as much and just be a quarterback, you're not getting Lamar Jackson. You're getting
Yeah.
someone else, essentially.
Yeah.
And so like
And
that deal is not really fair. And then if you're asking Lamar Jackson to be a runner, you might not have him for all the games in the year because he might get hurt. And so you would have to be like just truly married in the sense of like, you have a game plan for how you're going to manage his workload in the regular seasons. How, in my opinion, like the way that Jalen Hurts played in the playoffs is how someone should be able to play in the playoffs to win the Super Bowl. And obviously he got there and everything, but he was able to throw highly contested, catches or whatever you call it, highly contested throws. He was accurate. He was able to do that in the face of people coming at him and everything like that. And I feel like with the way that the Ravens have set him up is, we're going to be running the ball, throwing it to Mark Andrews, and then taking deep shots. And when you're down whatever amount of points in the playoffs, like you have to make progress every single play. And if you have any setbacks or anything like that, like it's so hard to overcome those. And like you have to throw the ball in the playoffs to win. Or at least to score points is what Shane Steichen says. Throw
to score and
throw
run
to
to
score,
win.
run to win. Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's just one of those things where if you can get Lamar Jackson and Shane Steichen basically have that perfect match, and he can bring that Jalen Hurts playoff experience to Lamar Jackson. Not saying that he can't do it; it's just we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
That would be worth everything. I wouldn't care about draft picks at that point. Like, F them picks. So,
Yeah.
but like what you're saying is if you have any sort of doubt in Lamar Jackson, it's like, okay, because I'm hoping that if we do that, it would be after the 4th overall pick and we get, say, Tyree Wilson or whatever blue chip we end up with. And then it's like, okay, now we need to get a guard. We're going to get people that want to play for the Colts if Lamar Jackson's there. We're going to be okay in the veteran market, I feel like. But, getting the extra cornerbacks, getting the extra linebackers and stuff like that. like that does limit us because we're going to be paying out for veterans. That's going to, kind of lessen the lower half of the roster, and that, that's where you get in a bad position. And so that's where trading for a quarterback is a lot less valuable than drafting a quarterback that you can build around. And that brings us back to, you know, I feel like taking Anthony Richardson is better than trading everything and making this whole thing happen for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and I mean, so and with Lamar, right? I mean, and I get getting injured, especially when you injure your legs, it hinders his full ability, like his full experience. But what I have an issue with some people is they don't acknowledge that Lamar got injured sitting in the pocket. He didn't get hurt
Yeah,
when off and running or any. He was sitting in the pocket to make a throw and he got hurt. I mean, both years, 2021 and 2022, sitting in the pocket, and that's how he got injured. Um, but like I said, I do understand with his legs, being injured, it takes away the Lamar's effectiveness. Um, and I do get what you're saying about, rather take AR because, rather than sending those picks and, leveraging your future for Lamar Jackson and just go ahead and take AR, which could possibly be the closest thing to Lamar Jackson. But my thing is we know what Lamar is. We don't know what AR is or what he can be. I mean, we have an idea of what he can be, but is he gonna reach that potential? But we know what Lamar is right now. We know what he can do in the NFL, because we've seen it. We've seen him be a unanimous MVP. We've seen this from Lamar. And granted, that was 4 years ago, but we've still been, or 3 to 4 years ago, something like that. We've still been able to see him play at a high level. Um, we hope we can get that from AR, which if we take AR, man, shoot, I'm all in again. Like
oh
I'm all
yeah, yeah,
like I'm here for it. But one thing I did think about was like if we were able to keep, like, let's say the board didn't fall how we wanted it to fall, and we're sitting there at 4. We go Will Anderson. We go, uh, let's say we go Will Anderson, or we trade back and we take a Christian Gonzalez because we need a corner. Take a Christian Gonzalez, or take a, what's the dude from Maryland, Deontay Banks,
yeah,
Joey Porter, one of those guys in the first. Then we get Hendon Hooker like in the second, or at the end of the first, trade him to Baltimore along with the 2024 first and the 2025 first, and get Lamar in return. Um, to me, because I still believe there's value in the rest of the draft at offensive line. Because you have a guy like Andrew Voorhees who tore his ACL during the combine, and you can pick him late, in one of the late rounds, stash him away for the following season, sign a veteran to maybe like a 1 or 2 year deal to let him, to give Voorhees that chance to get healthy. Um, I don't know. I've thought a lot about this, man.
oh yeah,
I've said and thought a lot about this, just in case, like all the different scenarios that could possibly happen. And that's why I think Colts Twitter, Colts Facebook, they just they're just so one sided. We got to get a quarterback. We got to get a
yeah,
quarterback. We got to get a quarterback, and they never sit and think out of the box or think in a way like, okay, maybe this could happen.
yeah,
Maybe this can't happen. Because if you bring that up, they try to crucify you, man.
oh yeah.
I swear
Well,
they.
and the thing is too, like you could bring it up and it's just a conversation. Like it doesn't have to
Exactly.
be like, oh, this is for sure what I believe, 100%. I'm going to die on this hill. And
Exactly.
that's where I feel like that would be the strongest thing is, if for some reason you get the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud at 3 or 4, like great. I feel like that's a great move to go up and
Hmm.
trade for, or somehow sit or whatever. But when we talk about this, we got to basically say, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen before the 4th overall pick, and that would be, whatever top 3 quarterbacks that we want are gone, and
Yeah.
now we're just left out of it. The other quarterbacks that I want to mention, if we say for some reason we don't want to trade up into the first round, because Hendon Hooker is coming off an ACL, he's 25 years old and has been in an offense that isn't an NFL like relatable offense really.
So
So
I say, and I don't mean to
yeah,
cut
yeah,
you
yeah,
off,
yeah.
but I
No,
say
you're good.
for people that say that about Hendon Hooker, I tell them to go look back at his Virginia Tech tape.
Okay, yeah,
Because
that's
yes,
fair.
Heupel's offense does not translate to the NFL.
Yeah.
But what he did at Virginia Tech, I think that translates a little bit more to the NFL than Heupels did. And he did really good at Virginia Tech. He progressed pretty much every year he was there. That's the only thing I say. That's the only thing I say when it comes to Hendon Hooker. But yes, he is 25, ACL injury.
Yeah.
All legitimate concerns for sure.
So like say that doesn't happen. And so the Colts don't want to trade up in the first round for whatever reason. You know, even like the Tanner Mickey or whatever, who's kind of talked about as like a first round or fifth round pick.
Yeah.
I think someone that I feel like the dark horse in this all for some reason is Dorian Thompson Robinson. And like I feel like that's just like a joke almost because like what has he done almost? But like he has a lot of these traits, these skills. He was the guy for what 3 or 4 years at UCLA, if not longer. He is a little bit older, but he still has legs. He still has a great arm as far as like strength wise. I don't know about his accuracy so much, but you know he kind of fits into that same style of big arm, great mobility. Okay, what can we get in between all of that? Because the in between stuff is more what the NFL is about. And so, if for some reason Dorian Thompson Robinson or DTR is that guy, I don't think anyone's taking him in the first round, and I don't think anyone's taking him before us in the second round. And to me, the counting on the trade up to get Hendon Hooker is a tricky thing because there might be other teams that like that idea too. It might not only be the Colts that want to get a Hendon Hooker later in the first round. And so, it might be that Jordan Love situation where when he was coming out, a lot of people thought that the Colts would trade up into the last part of the first round and take Jordan Love because Chris Ballard was like the first GM that was like outwardly in favor of Jordan Love. Like he was probably the guy that got Jordan Love any attention essentially. And the Packers went and took him. And so it's like we could do that, but also someone else might be thinking the exact same thing. And so whenever I see like my biggest pet peeve on mock draft season is those one team only PFF mock drafts where they trade down 2 or 3 times. They get Mark Andrews, they get Lamar Jackson, they get everything in the world, and then they still get the like Anton Harris and just like this like whole boat of draft picks. It's like no one thinks that's gonna happen. This is just stupid. We can't be doing this.
I've done one where I pretty much traded where I traded the 4th pick away and I got all of the Raiders draft picks for 2023.
Yeah.
All of them in one thing.
Oh yeah. No, it's ridiculous. And like you can just make things up and stuff like that. So like whenever I see those, I'm like, why even engage with this? This is just dumb. But that's where it's like, okay, there's so many things that can happen, but